It was one of those crisp autumn mornings in Willow Creek Estates, the kind where the leaves are just starting to turn, and the air smells like fresh-cut grass mixed with a hint of wood smoke from someone's backyard fire pit, when that damn letter showed up in my mailbox, staring at me like it knew it was about to ruin my day. My name's Emily Carter, and I've been living on this old family ranch for over 2 decades, ever since my dad passed it down to me. But nothing prepared me for the gut punch of seeing final notice $250,000 fine, stamped in bold red letters from the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. I mean, come on. What could I have possibly done to rack up a $250,000 slap on the wrist for things like my weathered fence being an eyesore, or my barn's faded blue paint not matching their precious color palette, as if my horses grazing peacefully were suddenly a neighborhood crime? I remember standing there in my kitchen, coffee mug forgotten on the counter, my hands shaking a little as I reread it, feeling this mix of disbelief and rage bubbling up, because this wasn't just some random fine. It felt like the culmination of years of nitpicking from those HOA busybodies who'd been eyeing my land like it was prime real estate for their cookie-cutter subdivisions. They'd started small, complaints about my mailbox leaning a tad or the way my truck kicked up dust on the gravel drive. But over time, it escalated, like they were testing how far they could push before I snapped. And snap I did that day. I grabbed my keys, hopped in the truck, and drove straight to their fancy office downtown, the one with the perfectly manicured hedges that screamed, "We're better than you." Walking in, the receptionist, some young thing named Lisa, barely glanced up from her phone, but when I slapped that crumpled letter on her desk and demanded to see Marcus Hale, the HOA president, her eyes went wide like she'd seen a ghost. "Marcus, you in there?" I called out, pushing past her without waiting for permission, my boots echoing on the polished tile floor. And there he was, sitting behind this massive oak desk, looking all smug in his pressed suit, like he owned the world. "Emily Carter," he drawled, leaning back with that fake smile that didn't reach his eyes. "What brings you storming in here like a wildfire? Let me guess, the fine." Oh, the sarcasm dripped off him like honey on a hot biscuit, and I fired back. "Damn right it's the fine, Marcus. You think you can bankrupt me over a fence and some paint? This is my land, paid for fair and square, and you're treating me like I'm squatting in your backyard." He just chuckled, low and condescending, picking up his phone like it was no big deal. "We've warned you plenty, Emily. Rules are rules, and if you don't pay up, well, foreclosure's on the table. Time to call the sheriff, I suppose." That smirk of his, it made my blood boil, but as he dialed, something inside me clicked. This wasn't just about petty aesthetics anymore. No, this was personal, rooted in the way Marcus and his cronies had been whispering about developing the outskirts where my ranch sat, jealous of the open space that didn't fit their vision of uniform lawns and white picket fences. I wasn't about to let him win that easily. While he was on the phone, pretending to be the big shot, I started poking around his desk drawers, not sure what I was looking for, but driven by this gut feeling that there had to be more to this power play. And then, bam, there it was. A thick file labeled Property Deeds and Titles, and as I flipped through it, my heart skipped a beat. Not only did it confirm I owned my ranch outright, but page after page showed deeds for the whole damn neighborhood, the roads, the parks, even the strip mall down the block. Turns out my dad hadn't just left me the ranch. He'd quietly acquired chunks of Willow Creek over the years through old family investments, making me the silent majority owner of what these HOA folks thought was their kingdom. The realization hit me like a freight train. Marcus wasn't bullying a random rancher. He was messing with the person who held the keys to everything, all because he'd been skimming dues and pushing people out to line his pockets with shady deals from developers who wanted my land for condos. By the time Marcus hung up, looking all pleased with himself, I turned around slow, holding that file like a loaded gun, and said, "You know, Marcus, you don't have a leg to stand on. Because I own this office, the streets outside. Hell, I own the ground you're sitting on." His face went from smug to stunned in a heartbeat, sputtering, "That's impossible. You're just one stubborn holdout." But I shook my head, laying the deeds out. "Not just one, Marcus. All of it. Your little HOA empire? It's been squatting on my property this whole time, collecting fees like some twisted toll booth." The air in that room got thick. You could cut it with a knife. And for the first time, I saw fear flicker in his eyes. Real fear, because deep down, he knew his greed had blinded him to the fact that I'd been playing nice for too long. out of respect for the community my family helped build. But now it was war. From there, things snowballed. I didn't waste a second calling up my old friend David Lawson, this sharp property lawyer who'd handled my dad's estate years back, and over a late-night coffee at my kitchen table, we pored over those deeds, uncovering how Marcus had twisted the bylaws to siphon funds, bribing local inspectors to ignore his violations while hammering folks like me with made-up fines. David leaned back, whistling low. Emily, this isn't just overreach, it's fraud, extortion even, and if we play our cards right, we can dismantle the whole thing. But I knew it wasn't enough to fight alone. I started knocking on doors, sharing my story with neighbors like Jack from down the road, who'd been hit with bogus fees for his kid's swing set, or Mrs. Ellis, who'd quietly paid up for years out of fear of losing her home after her husband passed. At first they were hesitant, scared of retaliation, you see, because Marcus had fostered this atmosphere of intimidation, whispering threats about liens and lawsuits to keep everyone in line. But as I laid out the deeds and the corruption, their eyes lit up. Jack slammed his fist on the table, saying, "I've had enough of that snake squeezing us dry. Count me in." We built our coalition quietly at first, meeting in backyards under the stars, swapping tales of HOA horrors that went beyond fines. Folks who'd been forced to sell cheap because Marcus dangled development opportunities that favored his buddies, or families harassed over holiday lights while his own house broke every rule. And then the leaks started, anonymous emails trickling in, probably from some insider tired of the rot, with bank statements showing kickbacks and falsified votes on bylaws that gave Marcus unchecked power. It fueled our fire. David filed the injunction to freeze their actions, and we countersued for everything: fraud, harassment, the works, turning the tables so fast Marcus didn't know what hit him. I remember one heated board meeting we crashed, where he stood red-faced, yelling, "You can't do this, Emily. You're destroying what we've built." And I shot back, calm as could be. "What you've built? On stolen time in my land? Watch me." The courtroom became our battlefield. Months of tension, with Marcus's lawyers spinning tales of community standards, while David laid bare the embezzlement, the bribes, the way they'd targeted outsiders like me to gentrify the area for profit. Neighbors testified, voices shaking at first but growing stronger, painting a picture of a man drunk on control, motivated by old grudges from when my dad outbid him on land deals back in the day. The turning point. Marcus on the stand, sweating under the lights, stammering through lies until David nailed him. "So, Mr. Hale, explain why you pocketed dues meant for road repairs while fining Ms. Carter for dust on hers." He crumbled, admitting half-truths that sealed their fate. The judge banged the gavel, disbanding the HOA, refunding every dime, and opening the door for criminal charges against Marcus and his crew. Walking out of that courthouse, the sun hitting my face, I felt this rush, like I'd reclaimed not just my ranch, but our whole community's soul. Neighbors hugged, tears mixing with laughter, and Jack clapped me on the back. "Emily, you did it. We're free." But freedom's just the start. We repurposed their old office into a community hub, painting it bright and filling it with gardens, workshops, and a voluntary council where everyone has a say. No more top-down tyranny, just folks like Sophia, a young mom with big ideas for outreach programs helping families hit hard by those old fines. We planted that neighborhood garden as a symbol, watching kids who'd hidden from HOA patrols now digging in the dirt, laughing freely. Even ran into Marcus one day, looking like a shadow of himself, mumbling an apology. "I got in too deep, Emily. Power does funny things." And I just nodded, saying, "Save it for the folks you hurt. We're moving on without you." A year later, Willow Creek's blooming, businesses thriving, kids mentoring each other, grants flowing to those in need. But sometimes I wonder, if another Marcus is out there, waiting to creep back in when we're not looking. After all, power vacuums don't stay empty forever, and communities like ours have to stay vigilant, or history might repeat itself. What do you think? Have you dealt with an HOA nightmare, or seen corruption sneak into your neighborhood? Drop a comment below, share your story like if this fired you up, and subscribe so we can keep talking about standing up for what's right. Let's hear your take on justice in these tight-knit places.